2. So, my so-called friend Kathy is homeless with no job, has depleted her savings, and has absolutely nothing except a car and some belongings to her name. She's been living in her car up until a few weeks ago and keeping her stuff in storage. She was complaining that her family and friends don't care and there's only myself and my friend Dave who help or care. We have been helping out here and there. He got her a job and I've tossed a few bucks. So this is where the entitlement and ungratefulness starts. She quits the job because it's too hard, the people are mean. They really aren't, she's just way too sensitive and has no sense of humor when things are aimed at her because she has no problems dishing the same out to others for some laughs. And pay's not good enough. $25 an hour to sweep up a build site, yeah, I know. I'd take that job any day. Then there's the time she complained she had to walk 20 minutes to a gas station to get gas when her car ran out after someone lent her their last $20. Another time is her cousin took her in, but she didn't like the house rules and now she couldn't tell them what to do, so they kindly informed her last night that it was time to go, as it wasn't working out. So now she lost the job and a place to stay, and she's not able to pay her car insurance, lease payments and storage payments. So naturally, she has been freaking out about being homeless again, and most likely losing her car and belongings too. But you know, me being me with the big heart I have and not liking when people are struggling, as I know what that's like all too well. Still felt bad and still stupidly offered to help with payments, and offered her my living room to stay in. Even with knowing her previous actions. I thought maybe this situation was rock bottom and she'd act differently. Why was I wrong? So I did some budgeting and really couldn't swing the financial help, unfortunately, but I could still house her and her stuff, and found her next saving grace. My friend. He offered to pay all her car payments, the insurance and the lease payments. All he wanted in return was to be able to use the vehicle during the day, since she had nowhere to go and nothing to do. She agreed, things went great. She brought her stuff over and just needed to do one more load from her cousin's place of her stuff, but it was 8:30 p.m. and he needed to get his stuff done real quick, so she told him to go ahead and she will just go later. Fast forward 1 hour, she's bitching and complaining that it's taking too long. Mind you, he just filled her gas tank and had previously unloaded her car for her. Well, he ran into some hiccups during his trip, and it has taken a little longer than he planned, so she's losing her mind, claiming he's just gonna cancel insurance and everything. Take her stuff and just say screw it. All because it took 1 hour longer than expected. Now call me crazy, but if I was homeless, broke, and had no other options, I definitely wouldn't be picky or demanding. I'd take the help that was so graciously given to me and appreciate it. I'm not owed anything from anyone, so when someone helps me out of the kindness of their hearts, I make sure to be grateful and make sure they know how appreciative I was. I wouldn't sit there and basically tell the person, screw you, it's not good enough, and figuratively slap them in the face. I'm beginning to see why nobody she's close with or her family want to help her. She's clearly treated their help the same way. Well, darling, when he comes back with your car, you can pack all your stuff back up and get out of my house with that ungrateful, entitled attitude. Last time I tried to help her, that's for sure. I'm still sitting here flabbergasted like, the hell is wrong with you? 2. Hi. I worked at a train museum for 3 summers in a row from ages 15 to 18, so I have plenty of stories and thought I'd share my experiences with the entitled people and crazies. For this to make sense, I need to explain the layout and way our museum works. We have 3 buildings: main station, freight shed, and roundhouse. The first 2 were built in the 1800s, and the second is a perfect recreation of a building built in the 1800s, but was built in the 1900s. Our station closed roughly 1960s, and the rest of the tracks were closed before 1990. Due to the way the buildings were back then, they are not necessarily accessible, and, due to age, do not have to be. There's no fixing the doors, as many of the doors are actually involved in holding the building up, and anything changing on the inside of the building is incredibly dangerous and costs too much. And being historical is actually not allowed without the approval of several different committees. This is important to the story I'm about to tell. We have had only 3 wheelchair users in my time working the station. My job specifically was tour guide. I knew everything and anything there was to know. And for the most part, the wheelchair users could be in the main floor of the station and get into the other 2 buildings. They just can't get into one room of the main station or go upstairs. The first wheelchair user was a child, and due to the small wheelchair, was able to get into the small room. And I brought stuff down from the upper floor to show him, as well as taking pictures using his camera so that he could see the stuff. I did a lot of up and downs, but he enjoyed it. The second wheelchair user sent her husband upstairs, and he took pictures for her, as well as recording my tour so that she could hear about the artifacts and spent the time talking to the camera for her. It's the third wheelchair user that was the problem. Our door and deck were not level. The deck was lower due to the fact that the deck was slowly sinking into the ground, so we had a ramp that needed to be placed at the doors. Most people understood that we couldn't leave it in place, as the ramp also held the door open. She was here with her husband, and he came in and asked why there was no ramp into the door, and was getting very mad because his wife couldn't get into the building. I did my best to explain that the ramp was for the back door and needed to be placed separately. I explained the deck and building were very old, and that they were not made with disabilities in mind. As the time period, disabled people weren't brought into the main station but to the freight shed, the only building that had a ramp in the 1800s due to wheeled carts going in. My co-worker was getting the ramp ready as I tried to calm the husband, but he only got more angry and yelled,
"That was then, this is now."
I was a bit confused and replied, "Yes, sir, I'm aware. That's why our deck has a ramp from the parking lot to the deck. But the deck is still from the 1990s and has sunk down. We are replacing it soon, and it will fit better. But for now, our ramp needs to be put out separately." He huffed and went to get his wife and helped her get inside the building. They went into our display room, which had a big enough door for her chair. Then they wanted to see the next room, but it was quickly discovered her chair would not fit. I apologized and explained the building was built in the 1800s, when wheelchairs weren't commonly in the station, and were actually smaller. In fact, we have a wooden wheelchair upstairs that fits through the door fine, but modern metal wheelchairs don't fit through the door. They seemed annoyed, but I showed pictures and explained what was in the room they couldn't get in, alongside the upstairs. The entire time they were both glaring and seemed upset with me. After we finished, I offered to take them to the other buildings. They didn't want me to come with them, but I explained the buildings were locked and you needed a guide to get to them. That's a whole other mess, as they used to be open, but due to eating lead paint attempts and attempted theft of an 1800 bagware, they are locked without a witness. They seemed annoyed and asked why my co-worker couldn't guide them instead. I explained that her job was to work the desk and give local information, while mine was to give information about the station. Finally, we made our way to the freight shed, and there was no trouble getting in, as it already had a ramp, and the door is a giant sliding one. This had 3 wheel hinges that I hate, but her wheelchair had no problems. In there, she was able to see everything without any problems, and she seemed to be brightening up. I was relieved that everything was going to be okay. I finally took them to the last building. Now here's the big problem. This building houses an old train. There is no ramp. The way disabled people got on these trains was to have the train pull up to the freight shed, and a platform was lowered from the train to the freight shed over the stairs of the train others would use, and then the wheelchair would cross the gap and be brought in. Due to the fact it's in a building, we can't do this. We'd have to pull it next to the freight shed, which just isn't possible, sadly. We got in, and her husband asked if he could go in. I smiled and said yes, of course. He then asked about a ramp, and I kinda paused. These stairs are steep. Think high stepping to get in. A potential ramp to get up would have to be long or too steep. And the opening isn't wide enough for modern wheelchairs, just old wooden ones. I apologized and explained that she would have to be carried in, but that her chair couldn't go in. I explained the above, but that didn't seem to matter. They ranted and yelled about me ruining their vacation, and left saying that they were going to report us for ableism. I don't know who they planned to report us to, as everything we did was accommodations to the best of our ability. We are not legally required to make the old building more accessible than a ramp due to it being completely original. And the train does not even have to be accessible because it too is original. We did get checked up by a museum inspector later on, but everything was approved as being safe and educational. 3. I was part of a team shooting a short corporate training video. It was on visitor policies for the front office workers at a regional healthcare operation. It showed various scenarios involving visitors that might come up on the job and the do's and don'ts in each case. No one was chasing an Oscar, but it was still quite a high budget and professional, with one exception. The corporation had granted us access to a front office area at one of their locations to use as a set. But they hadn't thought to notify all the practitioners in the building that they'd be shooting. It was a weekend when they're typically closed for business, so I guess they just took for granted things would be shut down. But there are dozens of private offices of employees in these buildings, and a couple of people chose to work weekends. As a result, their patients and clients kept streaming through the lobby while we tried to do this. For the most part, it didn't actually matter. Those who even noticed us at all could see we were filming and, at worst, took a couple of pictures, then left well enough alone. Until the Karen and Karen Jr. breezed in. We'll call them Wanda and Wanda Jr. Because my mother is named Karen and she's a wonderful woman. And my ex-wife is named Wanda, and this is exactly the kind of thing I could see her getting up to. Anyway, we were shooting a scenario in which a third-party contractor approaches the desk, attempting to gain entry. Example, a delivery person, a maintenance worker, etc. We were using a water guy. There's an elaborate procedure that's supposed to be demonstrated in the video. It takes several excruciating shots to get correct. We're finally approaching the finish line when...
Oh my god, are you making a movie? My daughter is an actress, she'd be great in any movie. Give her any line to read, any plot, she'll nail it. What kind of movie is it?
We had a PA who was assigned to play defense against anything like this when we realized the building was semi-open to the public. But things had been going so smooth for so long, he took his eye off the ball. A crew member pulled her to the side and patiently explained, "Sorry ma'am, no movie, just a corporate training. You can go that way to your appointment," trying to politely but clearly signal that she needed to move along. That went in one ear and immediately out. She grabbed Wanda Jr. and dragged her over, practically shrieking at this point,
"Oh good, no, that's so good. Things like this prove dynamism. It'll be priceless for her reel. You should be lucky to have her, trust me. Any pot, just name any pot, and she'll blow it out of the water. You should see her do Titanic, actually speaking of, but name any pot, she's ready."
Wanda Jr. looked anything but ready. She looked exhausted, mortified, and a little nervous. I didn't know if she was scared by the confrontation or at the premise of being given a role. Not that it mattered. The content of these videos is dictated by the powers that be. We can't just go adding anything. A more senior crew member tried to reason with them at this point, realizing the whole ordeal was really beginning to hold us up. He emphasized to Wanda, "This is a training video for the business. That means it will only ever be seen by people who work here. And not even every single one of them. Those who do see it, you know. There isn't even a credit, so please." He gestured broadly at our operation that had ground to a halt, hoping the point had been made.
"Okay, so just put it in as an extra or something. She doesn't have to speak. You're all so sensitive,"
Wanda griped. You almost had to admire her dedication at that point, but she wasn't advocating for herself. She was haranguing us on behalf of her daughter, who was cowering in a corner a ways away, seemingly totally uninterested in any of this. A few of us got together and discussed our next steps. We decided to just continue shooting and hope for the best. We did, and you can guess what happened. Wanda dragged Wanda Jr. back over and tried to plop her down in the middle of the shot. We reset at a slightly different angle and rolled again. Wanda made herself a ton of noise and did everything possible to be disruptive. We got together in a small group again. We discussed waiting to come back to finish another day. But we were already severely behind schedule for that day, so would likely need an entire day of filming if we went this route, which was not logistically feasible. We discussed calling the authorities. We did have a film permit, but that doesn't go so long a ways in keeping strangers out as you'd think it does, and isn't necessarily enough to even get the police out at all. Finally, we didn't want to generate any negative buzz with the company. We film corporate-type videos often, and we're not keen on a reputation of being hostile to clients, or creating hostile scenes inside public-facing areas. Then the PA had quite the idea. An upcoming scene was what to do when emergency services seek to enter the building. Example, firemen, security, police, etc. And as such, we had a cop costume and an actor primed and ready to play a cop, all just laying around. We only had to cross our fingers that Wanda and Junior did not notice the cop had a same-day side hustle as a water guy. So it took a little bit. Wanda planted her feet the entire time, taking glamour shots of Junior in front of our modest camera equipment. Then the cop arrived. We recast him as a security guard so no one would go to jail for impersonating some public official. He swaggered up to the front desk and declared, "Someone contacted security? We'll need access," which is actually also more or less his first line. A few of us were nervous he'd forgotten the mission and defaulted to his practiced content. But no, the desk lady was unflappable. Everyone was on their game. "Thank you, sir. Was it an emergency or non-emergency call?" Also essentially the desk lady's first line. Now we were really holding our breath. One of the senior crew steps in. "Yes, hi, I called." He briefly explains that we're trying to film and what's gone on. Our officer nodded and told Wanda, quite authoritatively, "All right, ma'am, move along, please. This section of the building is closed to the public, and there's absolutely no loitering." She continued taking her glamour shots. Photo and video are also strictly prohibited. That's a HIPAA violation. I might need to report that. Wanda huffed and puffed and pouted, but she didn't know what to say. The best she could come up with was,
"I had an appointment. I can be here if I want to."
To which our officer replied, "No, ma'am, you can be in the office where you had your appointment, and if they've asked you to leave, then you have to go. The rest of the building is closed but for the traffic to and from private offices." Think of it this way, if I had an appointment in Dr. Smith's office, am I entitled to go into Dr. Jones's office just because it's in the same building? Or am I entitled to stay in Dr. Smith's office for the rest of my life, because I had an appointment there? He stared blankly at Wanda, who threw a stapler off the desk in her fury. "Oh no, there will be none of that. Let's go before I have to escalate the matter." Our officer warned, with certainly no plan as to what he'd do next, so we held our breath. But she left. This was during the writers, actors, everyone's strike, so she yelled out as she left,
"I'm going to report you all to the unions as scabs."
And she cursed. Of course, our corporate training video in Middle America was a union acting job. While it was frustrating to be off schedule, I mostly just feel bad for Wanda Jr. I hope she gets to spend plenty of alone time with Dad to even out the crazy. 4. For a small bit of context, we live in the US, so we drive on the right side of the road, and passenger side is the right side of the car. My local grocery store is located in a small shopping center directly off of the main roads that passed through my town. Behind the shopping center is a fence, cutting it off from a side road, and across that road is a playground and field area for soccer and other such sports. Surrounding this park and behind it are blocks worth of houses. Because of this, both the park and the side of the road and the shopping center side have parking spaces that are 2 intentional holes in the fence made by the shopping center, so people from the community can pass through the fence to reach the shops. The road is also wide enough to have 1 lane of traffic each way between the parked cars. Onto the story. My family lives about 3 short blocks behind the shopping center, so instead of going around the long way and parking in the shopping center parking lot, my husband and I regularly park along the fence in one of the marked parking spots, and walking through the fence to shop at the grocery store. On this day, we had someone following behind us as we went to park, right turn into the spot. My husband, who was driving, was in the passenger seat. Turned on the blinker, found a spot, and went to make the right turn into it. The woman driving behind us thought it was a brilliant idea to keep going straight to go around us, on the passenger side. So as you can expect, she hits the passenger side right where the door's hinge is located, and then scrapes along the side to the front. My husband and I are shocked, but pull up a bit further to a spot about 2 or 3 down, park and get out of the car to inspect the damage and find out what happened. I had trouble opening my door, but after a small bit of force managed to get it open. Damage wasn't too bad, but we were definitely shook. Then, before we had a chance to react, the woman charged at us, screaming that we were irresponsible and hit her. Luckily, we had a witness that was loading up their own car with groceries, and she got between us and berated the woman for screaming at us, and told her what she did was illegal and she had hit us. The woman stood her ground and demanded we pay for the damage to her car as, "I was going straight and you hit me." I called the cops to take a report, and my husband and her exchanged insurance information, which she gave us problems with too, as at first she claimed she didn't have a phone with her, and then all of a sudden had one when the cops came. The cop, taking both sides of our story, tried very hard to explain to her what she did wrong. He got her to agree that isn't a one-lane road. He got her to agree that we were making the right into the parking lot. When he tried to explain that she can't go around someone in a one-lane road making a right, she kept telling him that she had the right because she was going straight, and we were turning, and then demanded we pay for her damages. This went on for almost an hour until the cop pinched his nose like he was getting a headache and gave up, telling her to take it up with the insurance company. Unfortunately, as it's still recent, I don't have a follow-up to this. But you'd think even if a cop is telling you that you're wrong and trying to explain it to you like you're a child, you'd at least wonder if maybe you're wrong? 5. For context, I am a storage manager for an unnamed corp. My day-to-day involves customer service and finding solutions for ongoing problems. My site is newly acquired under a third party, who lets us be the face of the property. I manage the tenants, they manage the repairs and budget. I'm just the middleman in it all. My customer base deals with all ranges of age, but I am highly skilled in boomers. Wish that could go on my resume. I have a southern charm, but I am also a people pleaser, so I can often get on my tenant's side and show them I'm worth working with, even through the issues. Today's pro. A boomer couple I've been working with on helping them vacate stopped in today to let me know they're vacating their unit with my site and a sister site that's annexed, unmanned. At this point, I had been working with them for over 2 months to ensure their exit was pleasant after bad management before us and the issues that came with the former company. All in all, they were pleasant and kind enough to leave a positive review, including my name as a source to reach out to. The gentleman who owned the account closed it out and shook my hand with a $20 bill. He thanked me for the amazing service and said it was to cover my lunch. I'm going to miss them. Today's con. The juicy part. Another boomer, but your more local type. Conversations with this tenant last 30 plus minutes. Every answer I have, he has another complaint that follows suit. The last company was great because they didn't care to follow up on debts or even auctions, let people rent units off the books, cut deals for advertising and repair work, caused a lot of fallout issues. He never had a problem before we took over. Now everything we do only makes everything worse. Millions have gone into this property, not to mention my literal blood, sweat, and tears to make it viable and secure. Today, though, I gave up. Boomer stops by to complain about the brand new gates we just installed. Again, everything from the location of the keypad, the messed up fence line, the single lane that is lined with occupied units, and has the only exit gate, the raised rent, everything. And every answer I give, he has a comeback for. But he really screwed up when he asked if my site would be manned or annexed going forward. Well, what if they don't have anyone here, and a rat chews through a wire and a fire starts? What then? Well, at that point, I suggest you have insurance for that, and I shrug. He mimics my shrug.
And that's the kind of answer I'd expect. You just gotta have insurance.
Yeah, that's the best solution. You're not home right now? What if your house caught fire? I'd hope you'd have insurance since you're not there to fix it.
You could say the same thing about a woman who was attacked. That they shouldn't have gone out at night. Why weren't you strapped with a big old pistol?
At this point there is no humor, I'm just staring at him. I don't think that's comparable at all.
Okay then, if it were a man.
Still not the same thing. In the end, it came down to me leaning back in my chair with no answers and no cares to give. He asked why I keep shrugging and had an attitude all of a sudden. Mind you, this is the same guy who watched another tenant wait their turn to speak to me while he continued to ramble for over 15 minutes about the same conversation we had 30 minutes ago. I told him that no answer I give makes him happy, and if he truly wants to complain, he'll leave a bad review when someone who actually has power over this location might do something. But I'm not the one to complain to. Every word he said went in one ear and out the next at this point, and he needed to voice his concerns where it mattered. I don't think he expected me to stop caring, but it finally got him to go,
"Oh, okay, well, guess I'll be going."
And that was that. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Idiots in the Wild, episode 160. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Please hit the like button before you go. And you want to get these videos early? Easy enough to do. Join us over on my Patreon page, which is linked in the description. You can support me there for as little as $1 or more a month. You'll also find links to the Hellfreezer Discord and the Hellfreezer merchandise store in the description. And if you really enjoyed today's video, then you can leave a tip. Do that by clicking on the heart with a $sign underneath. But none of that is required to keep listening, although I appreciate it and it has been helping a lot. Alright. Nothing else today, I don't think, so let's move right along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is: frying pans. Do you have a preference? Do you like them to be completely unseasoned and just plain? Do you like a good non-stick? Or are you one of the people who finds you get a lot of use out of a cast iron? I'm personally not quite sold on the cast iron, but I do like a decent non-stick frying pan. The coatings are a lot safer these days than they used to be. Let me know what you think in a comment below. And before we go, we'll have the answer of the day from a previous video. And this question was, what is your favorite green vegetable? And today's answer comes from Michelle Stewart. I like cucumber raw, maybe with a dip. Cooked one, broccoli and carrots, but I'm more of a fruit person. I could eat fruit till the cows come home. Veggies I'm moody about. I am a little moody eater. Thank you for your answer, Michelle. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. I'm getting hungry, it's food time. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.